Hey everyone, and welcome to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we talk about TV shows here. The year is 2021, and the name of the show is Babylon 5. This is Season 2, Episode 11. It's called All Alone in the Night. I was trying to emulate how he says it in the opening. If I could do a Bruce Boxleitner voice, I'd do it, but I can't, so we'll just move on with our lives. So full spoilers for the episode, of course, and this is a big episode. There's a lot of advancement in major plot lines and characters. Not Londo and G'Kar, they're absent, but we get some big Delenn subplot action. We have alien abductions going on, and some big kind of Sheridan Earth, like what he's actually up to. He's got kind of get a secret mission on B5, which is kind of exciting. So this is what we got. Shall I get the, I mean, maybe you'll have some more critiques, but shall I get the one obvious complaint out of the way?
What's that?
It's that when we eventually see the ship that's abducted Sheridan, the production value that went into both the walls of the hallways and the alien.
This was such like the high school drama club level.
And I'm not. This is the thing. I get it, right? This is like a hallway and an alien we're going to see in one scene and then never again. I get why they couldn't justify spending any of their budget on it.
Oh boy, it was pretty silly.
I get. The only thing that really bothered me is that so they were going for this kind of not webbing, but there was like so the fabric on the walls was meant to be like a
cocoon or something.
Cocoon webbing, you know, some sort of natural thing that this alien species make, right, and coat the walls with. But at the bottom of the walls you could see like the edge of the fabric just kind of, and at one point Sheridan like kicks it and it just looked like a sheet, and I was just like, this is breaking the illusion here. That just looks like a sheet. So just get it out of the way.
Even the alien that we get to see is pretty silly.
It looks like a costume that someone bought at a store with the big like classic alien head. Yeah,
like a Halloween store.
Like I think it'd have been better just not to see them, because we didn't really need to. You know, they were kind of just omnipotent. You know, they got a lot of devices and stuff, and that's fine. So
it's pretty funny.
I keep like it. And the funny thing is that elsewhere, like the Minbari like ship, because we've seen the Grey Council before, but we actually get to see like a hallway, and that looked quite good.
Upgrade.
Yeah, they had like a hallway set, and it looked quite shiny.
And there's a lot of like special effects stuff going on out, both in the Grey Council room and, you know, outside in space. We got some space battles, and they look pretty good. Yeah.
So it is really just this like one scene. They said, you know what, we're not wasting money on this scene.
Yeah.
So someone get some sheets and go buy an alien head, and we'll.
Oh, it's pretty funny. Yeah.
We'll do it.
I got a good laugh.
So let's just get that out of the way. Let's get that out of the way. We also, perhaps in some ways, is most exciting to me. We had what I'll describe as a David Lynch scene, where Sheridan has like a dream sequence, which I have no doubt that if we come back to this dream sequence in a couple of years' time, we're going to be blowing our minds at all the things that it's hinting at.
That's why Ambassador Kosh said those things.
Yes, I watched this scene 3 times, and I'm glad I did, because there was a detail that I noticed like on the 3rd time I watched it that I thought, oh, that's actually quite important. So we'll get into all this juicy stuff. So I think we'll start with Sheridan stuff then, mainly because Delenn kind of then comes back into the main plot towards the end of the episode. But he wants to go and investigate. There's some like, you know, missing ships, and there's like, oh, it could be raiders, but they're not really functioning anymore. So he decides, you know what, I've not been in an actual ship. I've not been able to fly since I got here in January. I want to go out and do this. And I respect the idea that he is, like, until he came to B5, he was someone who was out and doing the adventures. He was out. So this is different for him. Admittedly.
That's why we have Poochie, but whatever.
Is it an excuse for having our captain do things that a captain shouldn't be doing? Yes, it kind of is. But you know what? At least they're trying. They're making it part of his character, right?
Right.
So fair play.
But that's why we got Poochie.
Well, it's funny you bring up Poochie, which she means Kefir, by the way. I'm always concerned that any episode could be someone's first episode of this review show, and I'm just worried that you're going to say Poochie, and that someone's like, who the hell is she talking about?
Well, they better backtrack and start watching all of our reviews.
Yes. Kefir is Poochie. But notably in this episode, we get discount Poochie because he has to die. Right?
Yeah.
And this was the first thing I thought, is when it cut to this scene.
Me too. Like, why is it's supposed to be Poochie, right? And because it's not, clearly this guy's not going to make it.
Yeah, it cuts to a scene with he's with Garibaldi and Franklin, and they're just talking about baseball or something.
It's a very Poochie-esque scene that we've had before.
It is. Obviously he's wearing the same outfit because he's a pilot. And what's so funny about it, I like this little detail, is that they were sort of downplaying the Martian baseball team as being any good because they play in lower gravity. So as soon as they come to Earth, they're really shit.
I bet I'd be good at baseball on Mars.
On Mars, sure. But as soon as like they spent more than 10 seconds talking to this guy, I was like, oh, this dude's dead. Like he is here to die.
Yeah.
And they're never going to get that $30 or whatever the bet was that he made on the team. But they go out, and this ship, sure enough, destroys Sheridan's ship enough that Sheridan has to eject into his little pod.
Eject in space, which seems really dangerous.
Yeah, but they've got like a little pod they stay in. But there's a tractor beam, which we saw at the start of the episode. We saw like a hint of this happening to a Narn ship. Who he encounters that Narn eventually, but he's in like a cell. There's like a really goofy old school kind of like device that comes through the ceiling that has like a little blade on one end and like something else on another arm, but eventually it lets him out, and they sort of like pit him against another like prisoner, and he ends up winning this fight, and this prisoner dies. And then eventually this Narn comes in, and each of the prisoners that come to fight him have like a device in their head. They're clearly being controlled and made to fight, and he kind of recognizes this. The Narn's kind of fighting it as well for a couple of beats of the fight, and he kind of begs for Sheridan to kill him, and he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And he knocks him out instead, and then when he wakes up, he's already taken off this device, and they try to, what do we know? Where are we? Who is this? And they don't really know, right? It's all a bit of a mystery at this point. And then Sheridan falls asleep. And we have the scene, which I've actually found like all the dialogue here, because I feel like every line of this scene is important, and I didn't trust us to remember the lines word for word.
Oh, good, because I definitely forgot them.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff here. There's not only is Sheridan in like a dream where weird things are happening, weird things are being said to him, but he teleports, he changes outfit, as do some of the others. Ivanova is there at first, and then she changes outfit. We have Ravens.
He talks to himself at one point, right?
He does. There's two
and
two
a dove.
The whole thing is very wacky. Yeah, oh, you're right. Yeah, Garibaldi had the dove. Yeah, Ivanova had the raven. Garibaldi had the dove.
It looked like a real bird too. It blinked.
Oh, that's where the budget went. They got some birds in. Get me some birds and get me a handler for those birds who knows how to wrangle them, and we'll have some birds in our scene. But that means we won't be able to afford the staples for the bottom of the fabric in that other set. That's okay. To hell with that other set. We're having the birds.
I mean, doves usually represent peace. Ravens represent
death.
Death. Yeah.
Well, let me recount this scene, and then we can try and analyze or pick apart what any of this actually might mean.
Okay.
I look forward. I'm expecting you have some glorious insight here, so I'm excited. Tower's going to decipher the whole thing. So he's on Babylon 5, right? He's in just in a room, maybe his quarters or something, and he turns around and Ivanova's there, looking fairly normal, but she doesn't really say anything. She sort of goes shh, right? And I think the Raven's on her shoulder already at this point. Maybe not. Maybe the Raven's not there yet. And then she has the Raven on the shoulder, and she says, "Do you know who I am?" He turns around, but he teleports, because now he's in like the main, deck of Babylon 5, and he looks up in the walkway, and I can't remember who he sees first. It's either Garibaldi with the dove, or it's himself who's standing up there. Well, let me just
I think it's himself, and then he comes back and it's Garibaldi.
yeah. And Garibaldi says to him, "The man in between is searching for you." And then Ivanova's changed. She's now in a black sort of like funeral dress with like a veil and looking all very ominous. So that's kind of weird. That's kind of weird. And she says, "You are the hand." And that stuck out to me because this is not the first time we've heard about a hand in recent times.
It's not?
No, remember about Londo, like, you know, the mate techno mage had the vision about the giant hand reaching out for him. Or was it Londo's dream was that he saw a hand reaching out for him?
Yeah, that was his dream.
Yeah. But the idea of the hand has come up before.
Okay.
But here's the detail here, though. It's just when Ivanova's in the veil and that I only noticed on the third time I watched it. And this is like a really important detail, I think, is that Sheridan's outfit's changed. If you look at him, what he's wearing a Psychor uniform at that moment of the scene.
I didn't notice. I'm pretty bad at noticing Psychor uniforms.
Yeah, previously established that, yes. You're consistent. And then Kosh is there. He turns around and Kosh is there. And I think he's changed back to his normal B5 outfit at this point. And you know, I think he says to himself, "Who are you?" But Kosh says to him, "We were never away. For the first time, your mind is quiet enough to hear me." And then the final thing Sheridan says is, "Why am I here?" And Kosh says, "You have always been here." This is David. This whole thing, the extreme close-ups, the dramatic lighting. This was like, break out your notebook and start taking notes, because all of this is going to mean something at some point, if not already. And one of the things because the Psychor thing really stuck out to me, like that uniform, and I was thinking, like, does it actually represent him specifically? That Psychor, is it just a hint that Psychor's behind a lot of what's going on? It's not so much that
he's being manipulated, maybe.
Yeah. But something says you're the hand. Is it saying? Who is it that says you're the hand? If one of us says that, so it's when he's wearing the Psychor uniform, yeah. So is that her just saying that Psychor's the hand that is like manipulating things, or is it specifically saying, assuming it means the same thing as what it meant when Londo like was talking about the dream when he talked about the hand, or is it just the idea that the hand represents any forces who are manipulating things? So here it might mean Psychor, in Londo's case it might mean the shadows, because I mean I think we assume it meant shadows when we talked about Londo. That just makes sense.
I don't remember Londo talking about it. It was definitely in his dream where we saw like a hand come out of the sun. But I don't remember him actually bringing up anything about a hand in the episode.
Oh, well, that doesn't really matter. Said or
Sure.
not said. I just mean, we
Yeah,
assume
I mean,
the hand.
it could be like an invisible hand that's moving all the pieces. Like we're just pawns and someone else is doing it. So maybe that's Psychor.
Yeah, but do you agree though that we assume in Londo's case it was meaning the shadows?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
in the way that we're talking about, but in the dream where it's just a sun, like an actual star and a hand coming out of it, I don't know if that's something we ever really talked about, other than like, that was interesting. I think we joked that maybe it was that it was Ironheart's hand.
You say we. It was definitely you who joked.
It was a good joke.
Oh, pat yourself on the back. Take your credit. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know if that's like the hand means the same thing in both cases, or at least the same body of people or the same person. But I think the idea of the hand maybe is a similar theme in the sense that, yes, like someone's controlling things, someone's playing things, or moving pieces around. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily have to mean the same in both contexts in terms of the specific entity that it's talking about.
Sure. I mean, it makes sense that that's what he at least thinks, what Sheridan thinks it represents, because, I mean, he takes action, and by the end of the episode, to make sure that they're not being manipulated.
Yeah, but not all of this can just be from Sheridan's subconscious, though, right? I mean, there's no way Kosh stuff comes from him.
Yeah, the Kosh stuff, I think, proves that there's something there.
Yeah.
It wasn't a dream, it was something else.
Because, I mean, one of the ways you could read the Psycho uniform is that this suggestion that he's going to end up with psychic abilities, like he's just not triggered yet, and like they're going to emerge. And maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but the one thing that maybe kind of supported the rest of the scene was when Kosh said, "Oh, we've always been here, but now it's just quiet enough for you to hear me." Maybe that implies that, oh, he always had some sort of telepathic connection to talk to someone, and now, like, this is the first time he's been able to actually kind of tap into it in some way. Now, I don't know if that's literally what I'm saying it does mean, but you could read it that way, I think.
Yeah, I mean, or that, Psychor's trying to have, like, basically a coup, and they're trying to control things to where they're, overall in charge of Earth Force, or, they seem to have a goal of being more powerful than they are. So it could just be like in the future, Psychor runs everything. So that's why he's wearing a uniform.
Yeah. No, but what about Kosh, though? What about Kosh? All the stuff with Kosh after that, though?
Yeah, Kosh is still a mystery to me, so I'm not really sure. All that Kosh stuff shows me is that Kosh is the reason he had the dream. Okay,
so you think Kosh is the reason they had the dream. I assume you partially think that because later on the ship, when they're back, or station, when they're back at Babylon 5, he runs into Kosh and he says, what was the exact one he says again?
We were always here or something. We were always here.
I think that's interesting. I think the idea of Kosh reaching out to Sheridan is definitely an interesting step, because up until now there's been very little between Sheridan. I mean, not that Kosh had a lot with anyone really. He's had the most with Delenn. He had some with Sinclair, but obviously the Vorlons have been the kind of this mystery. I wonder if that's what it means. I mean, when he says, like, this is the first time it's been quiet enough for you to hear me. Like, again, in the same way that we're talking about Sheridan not necessarily representing literally just Sheridan, and possibly, like, could this also just mean the Vorlon instead of specifically Kosh? Like, the idea that we know the Vorlon have a lot of information and a lot of knowledge about the world and the universe and where things are going, and they're very opinionated on what we're ready and not ready to have. I wonder if, like, him saying, "Oh," or like, "It's now quiet enough for you to hear me," it's like, no, us Vorlons have always been here, but you've only just now started to actually, like, become aware of our existence. Maybe this isn't a hint of things to come. Maybe this is just more of a, this is the status quo. This just means where we are in terms of, like, the Vorlon-human relationship. Now, admittedly, the Kosh saying the same line to him later on does maybe say, no, there's a bit more to it than just that, but...
Yeah, I mean, it could just be that this is how Kosh communicates. He only communicates in David Lynch style riddles and codes. But I think I don't know. I've sort of been, like, waiting for Kosh to have more to do, and I think because of his interaction with Mr. Morden, where he comes to the Mr. Morden in the hallway back in season 1, and Morden, like, runs away from him basically, and I think Kosh says something to him like leave them alone or something. They're not for you. And so maybe now that the shadows are starting to make themselves more apparent to him, that he feels like he needs to reach out now, or start to reach out to Sheridan.
Yeah, I'm not convinced necessarily. Like, I mean, I get why you think Kosh has, like, initiated this conversation. I don't know. I don't know if it's literally that. I wonder if it's a case of kind of what he says, like, we were always here, but now it's quiet enough for you to hear us or hear me. I wonder if it's not so much that he initiated something, but something that Sheridan goes through on this ship, kind of, I don't know, opens up his mind to, like, a link that was always there.
Maybe. I mean, I never really considered that Sheridan maybe has some sort of, Psychor abilities, but maybe.
Yeah, or even if it's not like telepath abilities like Talia and like the other, you know.
You think the alien device
psychics.
could have done something?
Yeah, maybe it could be that. You know, he was sitting playing with the one that the Narn had on his head. I mean, that's possible. Because it kind of feels like, oh, something about it just feels a bit more happenstance about it than, you know, this is Kosh. Because Kosh can go and speak to him whenever Kosh wants. Like, he's lucky he doesn't have access. So, to me, like, something triggers this that's separate from that. And I don't know if it's the trauma of what Sheridan's going through, that he's got a heightened state, and that's why this all triggers. And we've kind of glossed over what the birds and the like what Garibaldi and I mean, okay, the hand thing, but I mean Garibaldi's line, the man in between is searching for you. Like, that's a pretty loaded line of mysterious dialogue.
Yeah.
Who is the man in between? What does that even mean? What in between what?
Maybe it's Kosh. Maybe it's our theory of someone in between Minbari and human.
Yeah? Does it mean Sinclair, maybe?
Maybe.
Possibly?
Man in between. I mean, maybe he travels through time. Maybe he's in between time.
Or even just the fact that he's in between two worlds now because he's kind of linked to Minbari. But I don't know, yeah, very interesting. Or is there someone else? Is this just someone that we don't know yet? Is this referring to someone that we can't even predict because we've not met them yet? Like,
I don't know. I'm sure all the fans are like, these fools. Just wait.
Well, what's the point of talking about it if we're going to speculate on mysterious stuff like this?
I don't know. I don't know what it means. But I'm glad we went through a detail, like line by line, because now I'll remember it for when the man in between shows up.
That almost sounded like sarcasm, like you were mad that I was being so meticulous with this, but
I'm not mad.
This is exactly the sort of scene that you should be meticulous with, because this is the type of scene where every detail is important. Like this clearly had thought put into every little thing. Like,
yeah.
Okay, if I am going to put forth something, I would say that because it's the very first thing that happens in the dream. The point of it at the end of this episode is to say that's what that first thing links up with, so that everything else in this dream over the rest of the season, over the next 2 seasons, 3 seasons, whatever it may be, every single thing in this dream is going to be relevant or in some way be subtly hinting at something over the next couple of years. That would be my guess, and the linking up with the secret at the end of the episode. I think that's a solid link. But
the last thing that happens is the first thing that happens in real life. The last line that Kosh says is the first thing that he encounters from the dream. So maybe it all happened in between those, in reverse.
But that would mean they all happen in this episode.
Yeah, we missed it. There's my theory.
I mean, I love this scene, obviously, because I thrive on this shit if it's well done. And this show has been so good at like paying off things that didn't even feel like they were set up for something, that it intentionally given us like these seeds and these like mysterious, you know, well, what could this mean? What could that mean? Because the other detail that I was going to bring up, but when I thought of my Ivanova, like the shush theory, was the second time we see her, she's in a veil, and like a black, you know, funeral dress, which implies that there is death, and I mean on top of the bird as well, obviously. Now I don't necessarily think this means that Ivanova is going to die. If anything, it implies that she's going to be bear witness to whoever does die. But is it a case of like, oh, our civilization or our diplomacy dying? Is it a case of Babylon 5 dying? Is it a case of anything? It could really be anything. But I thought that was important, that she has that change, whereas Garibaldi does not have that change. Or any change. I'm not complaining. I'm not suggesting that it's weird.
He's got one line with a dove on his shoulder.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to imply it's weird that Garibaldi doesn't also switch to wearing a black dress and a veil. Was not the point I was making there. No, super interesting. Super interesting. It's a very distinctly shot. It looks very stylized compared to, you know, what the show normally looks like. Not that the show doesn't have style,
or
but
even the next scene where he's, you know, trying to escape the alien vessel.
We've been hard enough on that scene. Like, fabric on the floor.
It's pretty funny.
So they escape out the door. The Narn works with them, and by this point, you know, like the Admiral dude along with Ivanova and like a fleet, and then a couple of Minbari ships all show up to save the day, and the aliens actually kill most of their prisoners. They jettison most of them out of the airlock, and then, but luckily, Sheridan and this Narn like jumped into one of the escape pods, so they get rescued. But when they come back, they find out that, you know, the Pucci the Second, he survived the attack when Sheridan got kidnapped, but the ship was leaking radiation, so he was basically dying his entire way back to like tell everyone that Sheridan had been kidnapped, and he dies on the operating table. Franklin can't save him, so it's a very kind of a dour side of things.
Did you wonder why he didn't bring out the device? The life-saving device?
I hadn't, but I think I've got an explanation that you've asked me, though. Because
I mean, it would have taken probably his entire life to save him.
Yeah, that's the reason.
But I thought they had talked about before, like using the device sparingly to like have people donate it like blood.
That was the theory. I don't know if they've like achieved that yet, though. Like that was like, you know, when we were talking about the possibilities, like what if everyone could donate a little and then save one? I don't know if they've actually found a way to like engineer it to work like that.
Well, I know because Sheridan and him had that conversation in the beginning of the season.
Yeah, they took turns, but I mean, I suppose you could like gradually bring people in, like. But to be fair, the kid like dies before they even start operating. He's like lying on a table and he just like he says something like, he says like, "Oh, I guess I'll never get my $30 from you," and then he croaks.
Yeah. He kind of has a I don't know, like overly dramatic death. I thought like the actual moment he dies.
Yeah. I think my it wasn't his only moment of bad acting, actually, when he yells "Captain, no" or something like that when the ship's going away.
Yeah, he's not the worst. I thought a lot of the lines in this episode were kind of clunky, not just from him. Like some of Ivanova's lines were pretty clunky also. I don't know. This episode was okay. Honestly.
Oh, you weren't super into it. Okay.
Not really. No.
Well, you hated the David Lynch stream, so I suppose all the appeal is gone.
I didn't hate the David Lynch stream.
Well, you hated talking about it. I could feel the vibes. I could feel the negative vibes emanating through the computer stream.
It was just I'm being put to the test here, and I'm not very good at this.
Test? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I sprung on you that we're going to talk about a scene that was in the episode of the show we were going to talk about together.
Not talk about a scene in the episode. You know, ask me about theories and what this means. I don't know. Like, I know they'll explain it.
That's what's the fun speculating. Then
yeah.
Try to read the things. Well, okay.
But no, I wasn't super into this episode. I thought there's a lot working against it.
Well, one of the things I actually didn't check because I recognized one guest star, and I think I kind of vaguely familiar. So the Admiral, I think, or whatever rank he was, General. He was in the first episode of the season. Yeah.
So you may have recognized him from B5.
No, I definitely recognized his voice from something else. He
does all the Transformers movies.
He's been in the Transformers movies. Why do you know that?
I looked him up.
All right.
And he's in a couple of Star Treks, Deep Space Nine and Enterprise.
Okay. The other one that I did recognize, one of them in Barry, was actors of Robin Sachs, but he was Ethan Rayne on the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Was he also in Galaxy Quest?
I don't remember that, but that was much later. Well, actually, it wasn't that much later.
Is he the one who plays the villain in Galaxy Quest?
I mean, he is, but I mean, to be fair, the main villain in Galaxy Quest is under a lot of prosthetic makeup.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got makeup on this. Obviously, he's Minbari, but you can still see his like nose and mouth and all that untouched. It's still him.
Right.
He's just got like a headdress on, effectively. So interesting thing. So the general's here, right, and he ends up bringing back in Sheridan's ship to help come like save him and all that, and it's a nice big scene. Delen's got info, knows who this species are. They're like a collector species that abduct things left and right. Minbari have dealt with them before, so she knows where their homeworld is. So they all go guns blazing. It's a fun little action sequence. But afterwards, very interesting, is the general comes into Sheridan's quarters and he hits like the button on his little doohickey. It's like a blocker just in case the room's bugged, and it's like, oh, okay, where are we going with this? What's it?
Yes. It's the dream.
Thank you for thank you for not visualizing.
I was listening.
Thank you for exemplifying the point I was making earlier. Thank you.
Yes.
I was looking for the right word. But yeah, so he's like, okay, so tell me, like, you've invested, and I know that we kind of got some of this back when he got like hired for this job in episode 1, but I don't know if I specifically remember like him being told to like kind of almost investigate like the others, like Ivanova and Garibaldi. If he said that, then I'd forgotten about it, but I thought that was interesting, where he's like, no, they're all good people, they seem loyal to Earth, like I hate spying on them. So we don't like dislike Sheridan in this moment. He's being very forthcoming, and he seems to be rooting for everyone else. He's sort of bonded with them enough at this point. And it becomes this thing where it's like, okay, you've got a choice. Like, you're going to stay here and you're going to start... And this became kind of the exciting part of the episode, I think, in terms of just, like, raw plot, because it was...
Oh, yeah.
Like, okay, we suspect Psychor are behind this. We know that, they've got support within the government, within the military, within Earth First. But notably, support... Because I think up until this point, we've just kind of assumed that Earth First have been completely on board with everything that's going on, but it seems that they are a separate entity where, no, some of them are in support with this larger thing, that Psychor are the ones that are really behind things, or at the very least Section 13. Is that right?
Bureau 13.
Bureau 13, there you go. At least Bureau 13 are behind it. And it's like, well, if you're going to do this, you probably won't have to like bring in some people to like be on your team. So the end of the episode is him bringing in Ivanova, Garibaldi, and Franklin, saying, look, and before I tell you the details, right, you've got a chance to leave, but this is, top secret. This puts you in danger. We may be on our own if this goes haywire and we can't prove anything. We'll be maybe prosecuted as, it doesn't say treasonous or anything like that, but that's kind of the sentiment that you get from the conversation. And they're all on board, and it's kind of like an uplifting ending, but this is the key point with this, though, is that when you go back to the scene with the general, and the key sentences, it's that key moment in so many like plots. And in a movie, obviously, you've only got 2 hours to tell your story, so it happens relatively much quicker. But it's that point where he says, it's time to stop reacting and start like actually trying to act. And that's kind of exciting when your characters take like a proactive kind of approach. Like, no, we know this entity's up to something, and we've got to fight this. And what's exciting right now, I think, in the larger scope of the show, is that we have 2 completely different things going on. We have this Bureau 13 and everything they're doing with manipulating Earth and all the various entities and government bodies on Earth. But then you also have the Shadows that are manipulating the Minbari and Londo and everything that's doing with the Narn. And right now, these feel very separate. And maybe they'll be tied together later on in some way. Maybe there is a connection between Bureau 13 and the Shadows. We don't know, but there's been no hint of that as of yet, I don't think.
I don't think so.
But this was kind of like, okay, you know what, now we all trust each other now, we're a team. So, and it took 11 episodes to get to that point with Sheridan. I think that's a nice fair amount, I would say.
Sure, yeah.
Doesn't feel rushed. It feels like he's shared moments with all 3 of these characters enough that some trust has been built. And yeah, it's just it's exciting for our characters to be kind of, no, we're actually going to do something. We're going to try and actually like spot things happening, because Babylon 5 in a lot of ways, because it has everyone coming to it, because it's this epicenter, there's maybe more a chance to catch things than there is on Earth. So 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 was
Yep.
I mean, you said you weren't super into this episode. I mean, how did you feel about this last
Well, I like the
minutes?
bookends of the episode. I like the ending and I like the beginning a lot. And then the stuff in the middle kind of dips, I think, in quality. But also, but I don't hate the dream stuff because I know that's going to come up later.
Yeah.
But the stuff at the end I thought was pretty strong. Was definitely the most interesting once like the general like started talking about the bigger picture things. Of course, I'm going to be more interested in that. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, because the episode's kind of interesting. You have the Delenn subplot, which I was just about to get to. You've got the main plot with Sheridan, but then this last 5 minutes is very much like, no, this is a part of the other main plot that's like ongoing.
Yeah, the stuff with Sheridan all sort of felt like I don't know, like we just need something to happen to fill the episode. But the end, it felt like, okay, this is the what the show is building towards. And you're right, like it's fun to see everybody take action, and it's definitely going to change how the characters interact in the future episodes.
I think that's a fair point that you just said about just filling the episode with like a plot. I will say the only thing I'd add to that is that I think it's more about getting him to that state where he has the dream. I think that's the important part. If your critique is that what happens to get him to that state where he has the dream just feels unfulfilling and is a bit just kind of whatever, then that's fair enough. But I do think that's the purpose of it. The purpose was less to have a plot for the episode and more, no, the purpose of this is to get him to that dream, and everything that happens up to that's the purpose of it. But obviously, if you think the ship's kind of goofy or the whatever, I kind of liked him working with the Narn a little bit. I thought that was okay. Yeah.
I mean, Bruce Boxleitner is like doing a good job and all, but some of the lines I thought were kind of clunky when he was talking to the Narn. And I don't know, a lot of that stuff just really fell flat for me.
That's fair. That's fair. Because I wouldn't say I loved that. I think it's it was fine. A bit goofy, but the dream all made it click for me. Like that dream sequence was like, oh, okay, all right, you're buttering me up for something here, show. I'm ready to slide.
I really did like the stuff in the beginning with Delenn and Lanier, though. That was good. I was really excited for the episode when it got that opening.
Would you say that you didn't like the rest of that plot then?
Yeah, I liked it enough. It wasn't. I was expecting a more like heavy Delenn episode because it opened with her.
You were expecting that to be the A plot rather than the B plot,
right? But and it's okay. They definitely made some progress there, and there's some real big consequences for her. And but the opening made it seem like there was going to be a lot more of it. And she's the hero at the end, so that's cool.
Yeah, I think it's very intentional. I think that's the other reason for the Sheridan stuff is that I think she needed a win at the end of the episode, because what happens to her is relatively devastating to her personally. I mean, obviously it's not like super tragic to us as an audience as a plot. We get the severity for her, but it's not like super action packed. But for her, it is actually this really devastating thing where she's kicked off the Grey Council because she is this in between person now. They kind of refer to her as an alien. They don't really treat her or understand her. All of the stuff with Lanier though, where he's like, "No, I'm coming with you. I don't care. Like, I'm coming. Like, I'm by your side." And then even at the end when she's kicked off the council, he's like, "No, I will stay by your side on Babylon 5. Like, I have chosen to be your shadow." And well, I didn't say shadow. That's a really important word on this show. I shouldn't be throwing that around. But he gives that sentiment, and that's kind of heartwarming. And her kind of acceptance of that promise is very heartwarming. The stuff with the council itself, though, she finds out who's replaced her, and it's was it Nerun, whoever his name is.
We've met him before.
We met him before.
The guy with the sharpened, whatever that thing is on the head.
The episode where the warrior clan were taking like their fallen soldier around on a tour for everyone to see, to have like their own funeral for him, basically. And he was like super aggressive and militant and mischievous, and he was very diabolical and manipulative. And Delenn, I don't know if it's something we actually heard before, but this was a neat thing for like to be confirmed here, is that there's 3 classes, and the council has always been made up of 3 of each. The idea being that it's completely fair and equal. and that him replacing her means that now the warrior clan have 4, meaning they have a majority in the council.
And they're about to go into like a big war, and they all sense it, right? So.
Oh yeah. They all sense the big war's coming. That there's the great war's coming. It's the way he said that there, but they're not officially in a war yet. Or
they're not, no. But they all like seem to know that something's coming.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because we've been hearing about the Great War, and obviously Narn and the Centauri are part of that. But I don't think that's just I think that's part of the Great War, not the whole Great War.
Yeah.
But yeah, he seems really gun ho, and he's as much of a dick as as I remembered.
Yeah, because everybody, I mean, we mostly deal with Delens and Lanier, who are very spiritual. Obviously, they're part of the religious sect, but they're also very like very peaceful. Like I know they had a 10-year war with humans, but they don't come off as very emotional. They're almost like Vulcans. So when you get one that is very like emotional and passionate on from the war sect, then it is like he stands out a lot. Like, can we trust him because he's got like all these emotions?
Yeah, I think what I liked about this was just as Delenn walked out of that meeting, it was kind of like, or not even just walk out, they did that thing where all their lights turn off and she's left standing. Would you believe it? All alone in the night. And for me, it was like she just walked out of this feeling that her essentially her government is now being corrupted because it's imbalanced, and that means that all the choices that her people are now going to make aren't going to be necessarily the thing that she agrees with or think has been dealt with fairly. And you know, when we talk about, you know, in the real world, you know, we talk about choices governments make, you know, it can be very much a case of there's like, it's very lopsided, there's a lot of politicking to make certain choices and why they may not be the right choices. But in the context of Babylon 5 specifically, we're dealing so much with the corruption on Earth. The idea that the Minbari government is now kind of corrupt as well, at least more than what it was before, is kind of interesting. That now she walks out of that room, and now her like opinion doesn't really have much sway with the Minbari. Now, you know, she's still going to be the person, and you're still going to be the ambassador in Babylon 5, and she'll still offer anything she knows to Sheridan or the people fighting the good fight, but it doesn't feel like she's going to have much of a pull when it comes to like getting help from the homeworld anymore.
Yeah. Were you kind of hoping that Sinclair would show up? Isn't he on Minbar?
He as far as we know, he's on Minbar. Well, but they weren't on Minbar. They weren't on the planet though. They were on a station. Oh,
I thought she went back to Minbar.
No, she talking to a station. It was the same station, I think, the last time she went to see the council. Maybe the council's always moving, or maybe I don't know, they stay in space for whatever reason. But
maybe they have a secret location.
So yeah, secret undisclosed location always changes because people always try to kill them or something like that.
The Great Council, they have a lot of pull.
Yeah, I think we're all going to get to see Sinclair once, I believe, like one proper like full episode to. I could be wrong on that, but I think it's just one. I was even surprised when we saw him briefly in that, you know, other episode with the video message.
Yeah.
So, I am looking forward to that. But, I thought this completely changed the status of what we think of the Minbari right now, in the context that Delen's now kind of going against the grain with them. Because even though we heard about different like clans or different sects before, the fact that now she's actively been like sort of essentially ostracized and is now seen as kind of a,
you
know, as a, not a leper, but someone that they're not going to pay attention to.
Right, which I think it's interesting that they let her keep her job as ambassador on Babylon 5. It's starting to make me think that they don't believe in Babylon 5 anymore if they're going to let somebody that they don't think represents them anymore represent them.
Even the way he said it to her when she asked like stay, he's like, so yeah, go back to Babylon 5 with your humans.
Yeah, like what do I care what happens on Babylon 5? Yeah. It seems like this big, you know, project of peace is starting to fizzle out, not just on Earth anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. That was the vibe I got from Neera in that scene as well. It was just, we're not really taking Babylon 5 that seriously anymore. And if they're not taking it that seriously, then like we're in trouble. Like if a lot of these different species, and it's the funny thing is that the Jakar and the Narn might end up believing in it the most because like Sheridan's going to offer X amount of aid, or he's at the very least he's gained Jakar's respect and things like that. Yeah. Very interested to see how that relationship. And what it does for the overall plot is just that it makes Babylon 5 feel like the true underdog. Like, how is Babylon 5 even going to help affect anything if none of the governments care about it or believe in it? It'll just make it that more fulfilling, potentially, if they somehow convince enough people and enough species to do the right thing or stand up and fight or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So. Well,
they'll have a common enemy, I suspect.
The shadows, yes. Beware the shadows, for they move when you're not looking. Yeah, actually, that was a little detail I just wanted to mention as well. Is the idea that the Bureau 13 and the others that are kind of up to stuff on Earth, they kind of assume that Sheridan is more on their side just because of his record, because he looks like on paper he looks more like a jarhead, but he's not. He's actually a lot more considered than that. And that's what the general says to him. He's like, you actually, like, that's an advantage we have, is that they're just going to assume that you're a certain person, and we know that's not true. So that's interesting, because I think that was the impression we got. He's always a bit more, he's not Sinclair, right? That was the kind of the vibe at the start, and he's still definitely not. He's still different enough, but like that was almost like the assumption that the villains are going to make, is that he's like anti-Sinclair, and he's not anti-Sinclair. He's just not Sinclair, and there's a difference.
No, but on paper, they both Sinclair and Sheridan have a lot of reason to hate Minbari, so maybe that was enough for Earth Force to be like, okay, this guy can stay. Yeah.
But Sinclair, for a lot of season 1, kind of proved to them that he wasn't their guy. There was multiple times where when he like solved the strike and the docks and stuff like that, where he like found ways to do stuff that the Earth Gov and all those people, they hated what he was doing. So
plus he had interactions with Bester that did not go well.
That is true. And again, we assume Bester's involved, but Bureau 13 could be a separate kind of splinter rather than all of Psychor. But again, Bester's been such a dick whenever he's shown up that it also doesn't feel like it would be a surprise if he is part of that. So, so there's room for stuff going on. Yeah.
Well, I was waiting for this conversation to happen with Delenn, and I'm glad that we got an episode that at least addressed it finally.
I mean, what the Minbari think of her now?
Yeah. And, of course it was going to be tragic, but I suspect there will be more to come about her new position.
I think this show, whenever you think it's not giving you quite enough, it tends to be because it knows it's going to sprinkle it to you over time. Rather than necessarily do like a big blowout like immediately on a topic.
I know people have brought this up, and I read it in the trivia, like back in the Gathering, about how Delenn was supposed to change sex, and I couldn't help but think, maybe because we just watched the Matrix recently too, about her talking about transitioning and how people don't see her the same anymore. I couldn't help but like think about that underlying, like the trans message that was there, probably initially.
I think, it doesn't have to, the theme of that can still be there without the literal sex change. Like,
right.
Everything she's talking about, we talk about the Matrix, there was no literal sex change in the Matrix either, but the themes were there. Like,
right, yeah.
You could read them. So, that makes sense. I think, for what it's worth, the discussions went quite long on this episode, and I agree that it's not all up to, it's not a knockout episode, even though I loved chunks of it. Because it does have a bit of a goofy kind of, Sheridan get adopted by aliens, and there's like a weird probing thing that comes out. And I was kind of laughing. I was having fun with how stupid it was.
Yeah, I was laughing a lot.
And I was laughing at the set when he was walking around afterwards. But I think the final 5 minutes, the dream sequence, and all of the lens stuff, I think, were all really good like advancements in plot and character stuff that make this feel quite an important episode, even if it's not quite the... like 2 episodes ago we had the Coming of Shadows, and it was this like game-changing episode where everything was firing on all cylinders. This wasn't quite that, but it had a lot of interesting advancements in it. So
Yeah, I guess maybe I was a little disappointed with the lack of the Delenn stuff, and I think I just wanted more attention on it. That's all. And I've been waiting for it. That's all, you know.
I actually,
and what it was replaced with was so goofy.
I think I know what you're really disappointed. You're just disappointed that you wanted Poochie again, and instead you got Poochie 2.0.
I got Ramirez. Was that his name?
Oh, that sounds right. Yeah, Ramirez. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he was all right. He's no Poochie.
What's interesting is he was credited as Nick Corey, but his actual name is like Zhu Garcia. I don't even know how to pronounce that first name. It's JSU. So it seems like Hollywood forced him to have an easy pronounced name.
They gave him such a 90s name.
Yeah.
Nick Corey.
Yeah. So that's a shame. It's always a shame when someone has to, have an English-friendly name. I mean, don't get me wrong, I mess up a lot of foreign names, like, constantly. I do. But I will respect and try and do it if you have to go with their name, then go with their name. But so it upsets me because I feel like, did he choose to change his name to, or did someone say, hey, kid, you need to change your name or no one's ever going to hire you? Because that's sad. I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that. Like Chloe Bennett on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., like her real name is Chloe Wang, and she had to change it because people told her she'll never get hired if her last name's Wang.
That's a shame.
Yeah, at least I think it was Wang. If it wasn't Wang, it was similar to Wang. Otherwise, we're misremembering that, but yeah. The story was that. So, hey. But there you go, Babylon 5.
What's coming up next time?
We don't do that on Babylon 5.
Oh, okay. You don't usually look at the rating or something on IMDb to see if it's better or worse?
I mean, I've done that like once because it was like a week episode, just to sort of make ourselves feel better. I didn't realise it was an ongoing. Do you want me to look?
No, it's alright. It's gone long enough.
Try not to make it feel like you hated being here, Tara. And everyone's like, it's been on long enough. Can we go now?
I think people expect a certain amount of time to invest in this review.
This was 0.2 higher on average than the previous episode. Would you agree it's 0.2 better than...
It's got more important stuff that happens in the last episode, but it's a weaker episode, I think.
It's better than Gropos. I would stand up for this one against Gropos.
Yeah, I guess I forgot it was Gropos, and that one was not very good either.
Wait, what did you think it was then, if you didn't think it was Gropos?
I forgot.
The one before Gropos...
We took some time off, okay? I had weak internet signal at my hotel.
The one before Gropos was the best episode the show's had.
I forgot about the woman, okay? The horn dog jarhead woman going after Garibaldi. She was rough.
I love the idea that Tara's making play in an episode is that this woman was sexually attracted to Garibaldi and I cannot relate, so therefore I must score it very lowly. Garibaldi's got sexual machismo, okay?
I haven't said anything about Garibaldi's sexual machismo.
He's a mad beast.
Season 1, he was quite a perv.
Let us know what you thought of this episode of Babylon 5 in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. It is very important. It helps us out on YouTube quite a bit if you do so. YouTube will spread us around a little bit more and we'll find more audience members, so please do. You can also support us financially, can't you, Tara?
Yeah, if you enjoy the reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/.
I don't know why you enjoy the reviews.
TV, and if you donate us $1 per month, you will get access to bonus episodes for other shows we do. And if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these Babylon 5 reviews 1 week early. Why are you trying to stop me? What did I do wrong? I did nothing wrong?
Yeah, I did nothing wrong. I just... You're so tied to saying it the exact same way that
I'm not doing it a second time.
The thought of pausing because I wanted to make a funny comment based on the review, right? Just one little funny comment. You instead did this thing where you slowed down your couple of words to draw them out so you'd still be in the same place and continue on in your usual speech. I wanted to do that, and then I tried to yell for an audible timeout, and Tara just powered on through. It just kept saying her bit.
Yep. Yep. I am.
So there's no pause. There's no pause on the
unstoppable force.
There's no pause on the Patreon plug when Tara's doing it. That's what we've learned.
That's right. Hope you learned a valuable lesson today.
Hey, they'll remember this one. They may not have heard the important information. They'll get that in the next episode. It's fine, but they'll remember this one.
They were always here. Whatever Kosh says, I don't remember.
Oh dear. Okay, that's been Babylon 5, everyone. Thank you very much once again for watching and listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Babylon 5. Just don't give away the home world.